It seems to be equivalent to this for me, but let's go. We solved it now using our way. But I guess, yeah, the other way, this one is more rusty. If let sum left node is equal to current node dot left dot as ref next level dot push. So what did I learn here? How to collect to a vector in Twitter. Ref collect current node dot borrow current node left as ref and wrap clone. Sounds good, sounds good. Let's see the code of others. Match roots return res. Okay, they are using a queue instead of our two vectors approach. I personally prefer the two vectors one because it's more flexible in many problems. But yeah, I can understand why people prefer the queue because yeah, that's what usually they like university teaches. The queue approach, not the two vectors one. But that's fine. So, yes, my favorite chapter in the Rust programming language book, LeetCode. No, what I'm trying to do is one section in the Rust book, and then I solve one LeetCode problem. Like, it's the theory and the practice. So I finished the section 6.2, the match control flow. Yeah, I've seen that they also did recently these like, I don't know how to describe it. It seems quite interesting, and I'll probably need to go again through the other chapters because the Rust book was updated. But I will do that later. I just want to do many sections and then I will probably go back again one time to refresh. And before continuing, let me wear something better. All right. Concise control flow with it-lets. So that's actually what we have seen here. Submissions, Rust, and if I look at the best, it was this basically, if let sum. And this is also what ChatGPT proposed, I think. With this if lets. Concise control flow with it lets. The if let syntax lets you combine if and lets into a less verbose way to handle values that match one pattern while ignoring the rest. Consider the program listing 6.6 that matches on an option U8 value in the config max variable but value in the config max variable, but only wants to execute code if the value is the sum variance. If the value is sum, we print out the value in the sum variance by binding the value to the variable max in the pattern. We don't want to do anything with the non-value. To satisfy the match expression, we have to add underscore euro parenthesis after processing just one variance, which is annoying boilerplate code to add. Instead, we could write this in a shorter way using if-let. The following code behaves the same as the match in listing 6.6. Let config max sum3 u8 if let sum. Okay. The syntax if let takes a pattern and an expression separated by an equal sign. It works the same way as a match, where the expression is given to the match and the pattern is its first arm. In this case, the pattern is sum max, and the max binds to the value inside the sum. We can then use max in the body of the if let block in the same way as we used max in the corresponding match arm. The code in the if let block isn't run if the value doesn't match the pattern. The code in the if let block isn't run if the value doesn't match the pattern. Interesting. That's actually a very good behavior. Using if let means less typing, less indentation, and less boilerplate code. However, you lose the exhaustive checking that match enforces. Choosing between match and if let depends on what you are doing in your particular situation and whether gaining conciseness is an appropriate trade-off for losing exhaustive checking. In other words, you can think of if let as syntax sugar for a match that runs code when the value matches one pattern and then ignores all other values. We can include an else with an if let. The block of code that goes with the else is the same as the block of code that would go with the underscore case in the match expression that is equivalent to the if, let, and else. Recall the coin enum definition in listing 6.4, where the quarter variant also held the US state value. If we wanted to count all non-quarter coins we see while also announcing the state of the quarters, we could do that with a match expression like this. Let mut count is equal to 0, match coin count plus 1. Or we could use an if let and else expression like this. Let mut count is equal to 0. If let coin quarter state coin. Solve that with blanket traits, or rather some dude solved that for me. Nice. What is a blanket trait? It is an implement of a trait either for all types interesting. Was it from your Stack Overflow post or from somewhere else that you got the answer from? Sounds like it's no Discord REST server. Awesome. Discord REST server. This one, I guess, right? Nice. Good to know. If you have a situation in which your program has logic that is two variables to express using a match, remember that iflet is in your Rust toolbox as well. 2 questions in the quiz. Which control flow construct will be the most idiomatic to use in the following function? Print range max. Iflet, right? Print the second field of range if log is a range. Return the first field of range or the only field of points match. This was very easy. Summary: we have now covered how to use enums to create custom types that can be one of a set of enumerated values. We have shown how the standard library's option T type helps you use the type system to prevent errors. When enum values have data inside them, you can use match or iflet to extract and use those values, depending on how many cases you need to handle. Your Rust programs can now express concepts in your domain using structs and enums. Creating custom types to use in your API ensures type safety. The compiler will make certain your functions get only values of the type each function expects. In order to provide a well-organized API to your users that is straightforward to use and only exposes exactly what your users will need, let's now turn to Rust's modules. Because this section was easy, I'm not going to solve any LeetCode. I'm going to continue, and after this one I will solve a LeetCode problem. Ownership inventory number 1. The ownership inventory is a series of quizzes that test your understanding of ownership in real-world scenarios. These scenarios are inspired by common Stack Overflow questions about trust. A new technology, the in-browser ID. These questions will involve Rust programs which use functions you haven't seen before. Therefore, we will use an experimental technology that supports IDE features in the browser. The IDE lets you get information about unfamiliar functions and types. For example, try doing the following actions in the program below. Hover the mouse over replace to see its type and description. Replaces all matches of a pattern with another string. Replace creates a new string and copies the data from this string slice into it. While doing so, it attempts to find matches of a pattern. If it finds any,